Today I thought I would do something a little different from what I usually do. Today I thought I would talk about Metal Gear. One of my favorite games. And hence the picture of Snake, or a character that looks like Snake, based on AI. So anyway, if you've ever heard of the Metal Gear series, it's a really cool game by this Japanese game developer named Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima, I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's actually a really good storyline. The original game came out in 1987, I think. Let me look that up. When did Metal Gear come? Yeah, July 13th, 1987. And those were like times when games were really rudimentary, but they were still good because they were forced to focus on the storyline more than the graphics. Because that's the only way people would probably play them, honestly. But yeah, video games, actually a lot of video games got their first start in Japan. And they started out as like these little, like, I think Pong was like one of the first games, which is like super easy to program if you're interested in that. I actually made a Pong game back in the day when I was getting into programming, because I was playing around with it. Because, you know, I've always been kind of a nerd in like video games, and why not learn how to make them? So I made a few games, nothing like groundbreaking. I did have some games on the Google App Store, but Google wants you to update so often that eventually my games got taken off because I'm just too lazy to continuously update. But I mean, I got so much other stuff going on that actually pays the bills. Making games doesn't really pay the bills unless you're selling them. And if you want to sell a game, you usually have to, you know, spend a lot of money on marketing at first, so you don't make anything in the beginning. Unless you're making for a game for a company that's already established, that's already done all the marketing and already has like a brand that people are paying attention to. But if you don't have that, then you're in for a long journey if you want to make money from your game, especially now with just being able to use ChatGPT to create whatever game you want to make. And ChatGPT will troubleshoot everything and make sure it works perfectly, just like, you know, if a professional programmer made it, or coder. So anyway, getting back to Metal Gear. Metal Gear is such an awesome storyline. So basically, it starts out as I think it starts out in I mean, it starts out way before. I mean, the actual story starts out like 100 years ago or something like that. But the game takes place, I think, starts out in like 1960s. And like during the Cold War. It's based on this character, Snake. That's his code name. I think his real name's Jack or something like that. But it starts out with him, you know, going to rescue some scientist named Nikolai. And yeah, he's basically, I guess, I don't know how to summarize it. I don't really want to be here all day. But it starts out with this guy, Snake, who is like a I don't know, I guess you could say he's like a superhero. He's like genetically engineered. And he also has a clone called Solid Snake. They call him an imperfect clone. I don't know what that means exactly. I have to do more research on that. But they're both pretty awesome. Like, they both... I wouldn't want to meet them in a dark alley, that's for sure. So... I think the first game, Snake is supposed to go on a mission to save this scientist, Nikolai. And he ends up fighting a bunch of bad guys. One that goes by the name, or a group called Cobra Unit, and he defeats them, of course, and everything's cool, and you know he is successful in that mission and everything, and then the 1970s come along, and now he's got another mission. And he is basically fights against somebody that's like infected with a parasite. And yeah, it's just a whole different, like, you know, kind of story where it comes to, you know, bad guys fighting good guys. And this time, instead of Cobra Unit, he has an infected parasite to fight against, I guess. And haven't even played that game. This is like from the 80s still. Like these games came out. I still need to play those. But moving on, we come to the more modern versions of the game, and the story is he's still fighting against parasites. Parasites have a big I mean, in the earlier versions of the game, parasites have a big, I guess, how do I put it? They're very common in the storyline, I guess. And it's funny because when you get to Metal Gear Solid, I don't really remember too much talk about parasites, but in the earlier ones, parasites created by some guy named Skullface are actually a very big deal in the story. But there's a bunch of different snakes, by the way. Those are just code names. But the guy who created the parasites, he was killed by another snake named Venom Snake. And after that happens, Rookie Solid Snake, which is one of my favorite characters, is actually the original Snake's clone. He comes in and he starts doing some awesome stuff. And next thing they know, like, anyway, just so you know what Metal Gear is like a mech. It's a weapon. That's where the name comes from. It's kind of like, I mean, this series is probably the only game that I like that has mechs. But anyway, at the end of the game that was right before Metal Gear Solid, I think, Venom Snake ends up getting killed by one of these mechs. So then Venom was like the hero of the earlier game, one of the earlier games, and then the original Snake was like the first character in the game. And now we're on to the storyline of Metal Gear Solid, which I can tell you all about that because I've played that game like so much. I used to go around just like, I mean, before it actually came out, I was playing it on, they used to have these demos on PlayStation. And they would give you like a few levels in each demo. And being the poor kid with that I was, not old enough to work and having a single mother or whatnot that wasn't exactly the most educated, I would sit there and play this game for hours. The same level. And I would just go around and just explore the whole level and try to do everything that you could possibly do. I don't know why I was so obsessed with this game, but actually I do know. It was because you're basically an assassin and you could do like, it was a lot like a modern day version of Tenchu, if you ever played that game. So you basically go around and you just like, assassinate people. And you can like choke them out, you can, knock them out. You can just kind of like play with them. I don't know. I was like a cat playing with its food. I guess that's probably why. But anyway, Metal Gear Solid, it's crazy. It has like ninjas, like robo ninjas, like cyborg ninjas, and back then it was like, that it was on PlayStation 2, so it was, the graphics were like kind of good but not super good. But the ninja, the way that they made him, it just totally I don't know, it just vibed with the graphics of that day. And the ninja was like so cool. He moved so fast. What's that ninja's name? I forgot. Let me look it up. Metal Gear Solid Ninja. Oh yeah, and I remember that it was so hard to beat him too. Frank Jaeger. Well, that's one of the ninjas. And the story behind this cyborg ninja is I think they called him Gray Fox. And he was like, I think he was a former friend of Snake's, Solid Snake. And yeah, I don't know exactly what they did, but they turned him against him with technology, I'm assuming. Brainwashed him or something. And just turned him into this awesome killing machine. Like, I can't even describe it. You have to play the game, but it was so cool. It was one of those things like, it's kind of like when I saw Matrix 1 for the first time. Like when he was, all those special effects and stuff. I don't know, maybe it's just nostalgia. But you gotta understand, back in those days, we didn't have AI, we didn't have CGI, so when this stuff came out, we were just like, wow. I mean, even when Final Fantasy VII came out, we were like, wow. Because we never seen it before. Like, yeah, a lot of you younger kids or guys, younger adults now, you grew up with all these good graphics. Like, we didn't have that when I was a kid. So, seeing all that was just like, you can only imagine. But yeah, so I kind of forgot what exactly happened in the end of Metal Gear Solid. I did beat the game eventually. I did eventually get my hands. I think I borrowed it from a friend. And did beat the game. But I'm under the, yeah, I think I know what happened. He defeats the ninja. And, I mean, Solid Snake defeats the ninja. And now we're going to... He also beats this guy named Psycho Mantis, Sniper Wolf, and And don't quote me on this, but I think he discovers that the US president, is actually a perfect clone of Snake. I think he discovers that. And later on, they discover that the president is just a puppet. I mean, a lot like, a lot of people think these days. But they find out that the whole world is actually controlled by this group called the Patriots, and nobody even knows who they are. And all these bad guys that Snake is fighting are called SOP, which stands for Sons of the Patriots. And yeah, it just kind of opens up and tells you more about the story. At first, you're just kind of like going on missions and like discovering things all the way up from 1987 Metal Gear all the way to Metal Gear Solid, and then you start, discovering like Hideo Kojima. He's so smart and good at telling stories. Like he keeps you intrigued, and he never gives out, the whole story on what's going on. And just every game you learn a little bit more. He gives you bits and pieces, enough to keep you intrigued but of course craving more. And eventually you get to the 2010s version of the game, and basically the end of the whole story is about them taking down this organization, the Patriots. And they have this new character, Raiden, who is I think he's also a cyborg, but he's a completely different character, but also a really cool looking character. And it even goes into AI. There's like actual AI with consciousness, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's a really good series. I think I covered the gist of it enough to keep your interest piqued. I know it wasn't the best summary, but like I said, I only played the Metal Gear Solid version. So I was trying to, I did read over the story, and it's a really good story, but I'll probably come back to it because I'm still, there's so many details. It's hard to just research it in one go. It's something you have to spend hours researching. It's such a great story, but yeah, I think I've kind of, reached my 20-minute mark. But check out Metal Gear. Not just Metal Gear Solid, but the whole series from 1987 to present. It's amazing story. And I don't think I mentioned it already. The reason I have a picture of Snake from Escape from New York is because Hideo Kojima actually modeled Solid Snake off of Snake from Escape from New York, if you've ever seen that movie. So it's kind of cool. And Snake from Escape from New York actually has kind of a similar backstory. But okay, my neighbor is freaking out, so I'm gonna log out before things get too real. All right, take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next stream. Bye-bye.